Greetings to all viewers of Freedom TV channel. Thank you for joining us to watch and analyze the events happening in Ukraine and around the world. This is our time, and here are the top news stories of the hour in the studio. Yuri Kalimich. 2 civilians were killed as a result of a Russian army attack on the Kherson region. 2 more were injured. This was reported by the head of the Regional Military Administration, Alexander Prokudi. The occupiers struck critical social infrastructure, as well as residential neighborhoods. 8 apartment buildings and 6 private houses were damaged. 1 civilian was killed and another injured as a result of shelling by the Russian army in the Donetsk region. This was reported by the head of the Regional Military Administration, Vadim Filishke. 4 private houses and 1 apartment building were damaged. In total, the Russians attacked settlements in the Donetsk region 15 times in the past 24 hours. Massive attacks. Kramatorsk was also targeted by drones. An apartment in a 5-story residential building caught fire, as did the roof of a 9-story building. The strike was also carried out on the private sector. A fire broke out in an outbuilding. And as a result of an attack by Russian invaders in the Zaporizhzhia region, a civilian woman was injured. This was reported by the head of the Regional Military Administration, Ivan Federer. Over the past day, the occupying army carried out 13 airstrikes, 238 artillery strikes, and attacked with drones 309 times in the region, of various types. Residential and administrative buildings were damaged. Also, last night, Russian troops attacked the Kharkiv region. A woman was injured. This was reported by the head of the Regional Military Administration, Oleg Synagubo. The Russian Federation Army struck the region with various types of drones, as well as with glide bombs. A fire broke out. Residential houses and administrative institutions were damaged. Meanwhile, the search and rescue operation continues at the site of the Russian terrorist attack in Kharkiv. Fragments of another person's body have been found under the rubble of the house. This is already the 4th victim after the Russian army struck the residential neighborhood with 2 ballistic missiles. This was reported by the mayor of Kharkiv, Ihor Tereka. Search and rescue operations at the scene of the tragedy are ongoing. Let me remind you, on January 2nd, Russian forces launched a missile strike on Kharkiv. A 5-story residential building in the Kyiv district of the city was hit in the attack. As a result of the shelling, the apartment building was completely destroyed. 31 people were injured. And last night, Russia launched 52 drones of various types at Ukraine. 40 of them were Shaheds. Ukrainian air defenders neutralized 39 targets. 13 hits were recorded at 9 locations. And more than 1,000 glide bombs, another 1,000 drones, and 6 missiles. Just in the past week, Russia launched these at Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said. He emphasized that it is very important for the country that support from partners continues, that there's military aid and strengthening of Ukrainian air defense. The head of state added that stability and predictability of aid for Ukraine could push Moscow toward diplomacy. And Ukraine is preparing for the next round of talks on the peace plan. The day before, in Kyiv, Volodymyr Zelenskyy met with national security advisors from coalition member states and other interested parties. These were representatives from 15 European countries, as well as NATO, the European Council, and the European Commission. The partners once again discussed the texts of the prepared documents, in particular the 20-point peace plan. No changes were made. They only stated their positions ahead of the coalition leaders' meeting on January 6th in France. According to the president, the main focus was on security guarantees, the reconstruction of Ukraine, and the basic framework for a real peace. Zelenskyy thanked the coalition of willing countries for ensuring that Ukraine is not alone on the diplomatic path. Our country has 2 paths. There is the first path, which is less painful, a peaceful and diplomatic path. That is number 1 for me personally. We want to end the war. I understand that we are very close to a result, but at some point, if Russia blocks all of this, if our partners do not force Russia to stop the war, there will be another path, to defend ourselves. And at that moment, fresh forces will be needed. And that's why I'm running a parallel reboot of all structures, just in case. The timeline for Ukraine's accession to the European Union can be significantly accelerated. The year 2027, as a date for joining, is becoming more and more realistic. This was stated by Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic Integration of Ukraine, Taras Kachka, following a meeting of security advisors in Kyiv. According to him, the partners have come to understand how to speed up the process.
There's good news. Not only the U.S. government, but also the U.S. financial market believes that joining the EU is a cornerstone of Ukraine's economic development. Ratification of all documents, and the actual moment of Ukraine's accession was planned for 2030. However, some elements of the international treaty, including its ratification, can be significantly shortened. That's why the more ambitious timeline currently being discussed as part of the 20-point peace plan is also considered realistic. And there is already a certain understanding of how this timeline can be shortened. Very theoretically, extremely record-breaking, but possible.
On Monday, January 5th, Nicolas Maduro may appear before a court in New York. He is accused of narco-terrorism and illegal arms trafficking, according to Reuters. Meanwhile, a state of emergency has been declared in Venezuela. For his part, White House Chief Donald Trump noted that the operation in Venezuela should serve as a warning to anyone who threatens the sovereignty of the United States and puts American lives at risk. Trump also added that America will extract oil in Venezuela to cover the costs of its intervention. We're going to take back the oil, which, honestly, we should have taken back a long time ago. There's a lot of money coming out of the ground. All these expenses will be reimbursed to us. We will be compensated for everything we spend. That's how it's going to be. A very important event happened last night. We need to be surrounded by safe, reliable countries. The United Kingdom considered Nicolas Maduro an illegitimate president and does not regret the fall of his regime in Venezuela. Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced this on social media X, formerly known as Twitter. At the same time, he emphasized support for international law. According to him, in the coming days, the British government will discuss the development of the situation with its American partners. The United Kingdom has long supported the transfer of power in Venezuela. We have considered Maduro an illegitimate president and are not shedding any tears over the end of his regime. I have once again reaffirmed my support for international law. In the coming days, the UK government will discuss the development of the situation with its American colleagues as we strive for a safe and peaceful transfer of power to a legitimate government that will reflect the will of the Venezuelan people. Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, on social media. Russia is increasing camouflage at Black Sea Fleet facilities in Novorossiysk. This was reported by the partisan movement Atesh. The command of the occupying Russian forces has switched to enhanced camouflage mode for logistics centers after a series of successful strikes by the Ukrainian Defense Forces. During reconnaissance of the area, it was discovered that the entire facility had been covered with dense camouflage nets. The purpose of these measures is to conceal the process of loading and moving military resources, according to Atesh. In addition, new video surveillance systems have been installed around the entire perimeter. Atesh partisans also discovered that the automobile plant in Bryansk manufactures chassis for the S-400 and S-350 air defense systems, Iskander-M missile complexes, as well as Oregon multiple launch rocket systems. They note that the facility is one of the key sites of the Russian military-industrial complex. The plant specializes in producing wheeled platforms and chassis for air defense systems, radar stations, and other military equipment used in the war against Ukraine. During their reconnaissance, the partisans documented the locations of production workshops, administrative buildings, warehouses, and access roads used in the facility's logistics. According to their information, the plant continues to operate actively as part of fulfilling defense contracts. Meanwhile, Latvia will deliver a new batch of vehicles to Ukraine, including a luxury-class Lincoln Navigator. This was reported by the Latvian Ministry of Internal Affairs. These vehicles were confiscated from drunk drivers and as part of other criminal cases. The vehicles are intended for the military units of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, the National Guard, the Kharkiv Multidisciplinary Clinical Hospital, and the military administration of Novovorontsovka in the Kherson region. Let me remind you, in 2024, Ukraine has received more than 600 such vehicles. They're used both for combat missions and for humanitarian needs in frontline regions.
Subscribe to The Gaze and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.